Russia's in the West's line of fire over its actions in eastern Ukraine. The United States and European allies are poised to impose fresh sanctions after Moscow recognized 2 breakaway regions and ordered troops to be deployed. Donetsk and Luhansk have been under the control of Russian-backed separatists since breaking away from Ukraine in 2014. Kyiv says Russia's formal recognition of the regions is another step towards the revival of the Soviet Union. Columns of military vehicles were sighted on the outskirts of Donetsk, just hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin gave the order. Mr. Putin has said the troops will carry out peacekeeping duties. He claims the move is to protect the people in the Donbas region from Kyiv. Fighting in the region has rapidly escalated in recent days, with Russia and Ukraine trading blame. The West has dismissed the Kremlin's allegations. The US and Europe believe Moscow is paving the way for an invasion of Ukraine. Britain believes that incursion has already begun.
We've seen that he has recognized these breakaway eastern regions in Ukraine. And from the reports, I think we can already tell that he's sent in tanks and troops. So I think from that, you can conclude that the invasion of Ukraine has begun.
We'll take you live to Moscow for Russia's perspective later on this bulletin. But first, Simon Marks joins us from Washington. Simon, the U.S. has threatened unprecedented actions of Russia as it invades Ukraine. As the Senate says, it's the mother of all sanctions. What might be on the table?
Well, it depends when the administration determines here that the invasion of Ukraine is underway. President Biden has been absolutely clear about this for several weeks. The invasion, as he puts it, of Ukraine by the Russians would lead to crippling economic sanctions that would personally target Vladimir Putin and figures around him in the Kremlin. There has been a debate with some countries in Europe about just how far those sanctions would go. But already in the last few minutes, we've seen a clear indication that Germany is now taking steps to freeze in its tracks the Nord Stream 2 pipeline project. That announcement made by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. It remains to be seen how far the Europeans are prepared to go in terms of cutting Russia's financial institutions off from the SWIFT interbank system. There's been back and forth on that. And over the weekend, a National Security Council official here indicated that that kind of measure would not be included in the first draft of sanctions. But President Biden now has a difficult decision to make, because the executive order he signed last night threatening to take action against any Americans or others who do business in those very 2 specific regions of eastern Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk, has not gone far enough for many here in the foreign policy community, including some prominent Democrats. The former U.S. ambassador to Moscow, Mike McFaul, who served during the Obama administration, said now is not the time for a proportional response like Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He's saying the Biden administration needs to unveil a major package of sanctions now, even before President Putin indicates just how much he plans to give marching orders, quite literally, to the Russian army.
Also, meanwhile, mixed messages from Russia. It has said the door is open for talks, but just a day ago, it was also saying it's too early to have any concrete plans for a summit between the 2 leaders. Does it want Washington to take any specific message away from these mixed messages?
Well, I think the message that the Kremlin is trying to communicate consistently to the Biden administration is that President Putin will make his own decisions, has a pretty clear idea of what he wants. That very fiery speech that he made in his address to the nation to Russians on Monday night was very clear. He sees his role as correcting the historical wrong of the creation of an independent Ukraine. And he traced things all the way back to the middle 1800s, argued that Lenin, Stalin, Khrushchev and other Soviet leaders had made huge historic mistakes by imbuing Ukraine with a sense of independence, that this had driven a wedge between Russia and its Slav neighbour, and that it was time to bring all that to an end. However, by prompting initial military action that takes Russian forces into that sliver of eastern Ukraine, but not necessarily takes them any deeper into Ukrainian territory, he's essentially daring President Biden. President Biden has to decide how much of his arsenal, in terms of the sanctions that he's planning to unveil, does he keep dry for later in what could be a very extensive Russian military campaign, and how much does he unleash right now in order to send a very clear message to Moscow that, as the White House said yesterday, the Biden administration strongly condemns what Vladimir Putin is doing?
Oh, thanks for that. Simon Marks reporting from Washington, D.C.
Well, countries in Asia are closely watching developments in Ukraine. Many are urging all parties to exercise restraint and dialogue in seeking a peaceful solution. China, South Korea and Singapore are among nations expressing concern after President Putin ordered troops into breakaway regions of eastern Ukraine. Now, Beijing says that the situation is worsening, but adds that its take remains consistent. During a phone call, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has told his US counterpart Antony Blinken that the legitimate security concerns of any country should be respected. Mr. Wang says the UN's purposes and principles should also be upheld. Beijing's position was reiterated by the Chinese Foreign Ministry.
乌克兰问题演变至今，与新明斯克协议迟迟未能有效执行密切相关。中方将继续按照事情本身的是非曲直，与各方接触。
South Korea and Singapore are also calling for international law to be respected, along with Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Seoul has promised to actively participate in efforts to resolve the issue quickly and peacefully. Both countries are urging their citizens to leave Ukraine. There are still more than 60 South Koreans in Ukraine. That's down from about 600 at the end of last month. Beijing is warning Chinese nationals and businesses against venturing into unstable areas, but it has stopped short of telling them to leave. With Chinese outposts, they're ready to provide assistance.